Thank you very much. All right. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining. I'm James. I head up Stripe here in the UK, and I'm here to tell you a little bit more about where we see the future of retail. So before we get into that, let's just go back to basics and think about how Stripe fits into this, and go back to the basics in terms of how Stripe fits in on the internet. I want to go back to HTTP, which is the basic protocol of how the internet works. So it's what allows information to flow freely across the internet and for anyone, anywhere, to access any information online. And HTTP was invented first in the 1990s and is kind of the protocol that has been used ever since then. And this is a copy of the first version of it, if you like. Now, with HTTP comes a lot of things that we all know and love about the internet. You've got the 404 error, where a page isn't found. You've probably seen that one before. You've got 403, when a page is forbidden. You can't actually access a server or a website you want to look at. And if we keep going back to 402, what we get is payment required. Now, you probably haven't seen this one, and that's almost by design. Because if you look at the documentation close enough, which I have done, you'll see that it's reserved for future use. And so this pretty much sums up where we are with online payments today. It was pretty obvious from the outset of the internet that the internet was going to be one of those places that people are going to come together and not just share ideas, but also transact with each other. But when we were designing the system, it was just an afterthought. It was something we thought, OK, that should be in there, but nobody really thought through the mechanics of how that would work. And so really, we believe that it's this fundamental problem in the underlying infrastructure of the internet that means that despite the web being 25 years old today, and more than 2.5 billion people being online, less than 5% of global consumer spending actually happens online. And so there's clearly a disconnect here. And so that's where Stripe comes in. We're the software platform that allows anyone to transact online and retailers to reach their customers wherever they are in the world. So that's Stripe. Now, little experiment. Everyone take out your phones and tell me, I'll give you a second. So put your hand up if you have Twitter on your home screen. How many people? About half? Good. Now put your hand up if you have Instagram on your home screen. What's that, about 60%? OK, now put your hand up if you have Amazon on your home screen. 1, 2, is that about 5%? So the official statistics here are that 40% of people have Twitter or Instagram or both on their home screens, and only 10%, or less than 10% actually, have Amazon on their home screens. So there's clearly a disconnect in terms of what people are doing on their phones when they're browsing and when they're buying. And that's not surprising, right? If you think about what you use your phone for, it's often about accessing content, accessing social networks, and it's sometimes about buying. Some people buy on their phones, but not enough people. And if we look at the stats around that, we'll see that 60% of browsing happens on mobile devices. So 60% of the time you spend online happens on mobile devices. And yet, only 15% of actual shopping, actual transactions, happen on mobile devices. So clearly, there's a disconnect here. And that disconnect is really caused by the fact that the infrastructure we're using hasn't caught up to where we need to be to sell on mobile devices. Now, why is that? A lot of it is to do with this. You probably will have all been through a checkout flow that looks a little bit like this. And I don't mean to single out this retailer in particular. I could have found much worse examples. You've all been here before. Lots of options, adding to a cart like you do on a desktop page, selecting the options, guest checkout, registered checkout, logging in, registration, billing address, shipping address, entering your 16-digit card number. Now, all of these are what retailers often do when they approach mobile. They think about it like the desktop experience, and they cram what they have on desktop into a mobile format. Now, that just doesn't work very well these days because obviously the size of the device and the screen you're working on is a lot smaller, and the way that people access information and interact with their phones is very different from how they do on desktop. So this is part of the problem. Now, I'm bored of this video now. It goes on far too long, and you probably would have got bored as well if you'd been in this checkout flow, and you probably wouldn't have finished and ended up buying anything, and that's exactly why people have low conversion on mobile devices. So fixing this problem is really important because it allows that 15% of commerce to reach more like 60% of commerce like we spend our time browsing. So there are a few things that are exciting in this space that I want to share with you. One that we're excited about is Apple Pay. Apple Pay actually fixes two of the problems in terms of buying on mobile. The first is around the user experience. So instead of having your phone in one hand, your credit card in another, and trying to type in your card details as you're walking along the street, you can simply store your card details securely on your phone, on your device, and then authorize the payment with a single touch of Touch ID. So a lot smoother customer experience, a lot smoother checkout experience. The other thing that has been solved through this is the security aspect. So traditionally, payments online are a little bit less secure than in person, but actually Apple Pay addresses that at the same time. Using that biometric layer, they actually increase the security of the transaction and reduce fraud. And so it's pretty amazing what they've done in terms of improving the customer experience and increasing conversion and increased security, because usually those things are a trade-off against each other online. And this is what we mean when we talk about fixing some of those interfaces that exist online and on mobile. The other thing that we're really excited about in terms of fixing this underlying infrastructure is we recently did a strategic partnership with Visa, and that really allows us to get to the heart of some of these problems that exist online and on mobile in terms of the underlying infrastructure. So working on things like security, tokenization that works across devices and across websites, and this sort of thing, to really bring the whole underlying infrastructure up to date into how people use mobile today. And so the other part of the solution that we're working on is Relay. And Relay is a new part of our API that actually allows our users to handle not just payment information, but product and order information alongside it. And so that's pretty important for a couple of reasons. First of all, it allows retailers to integrate buy now functionality into mobile apps that they've built. So it allows them to build a lot better mobile payment experience and mobile checkout experience than they otherwise would have had in the previous world, like we saw on the example. And it also allows those retailers, once they've integrated, to actually push products out to a range of different platforms. So not just into their own mobile apps, but into other mobile apps, into Twitter, into Facebook, into Pinterest. And so that's really interesting because it allows them to reach their customers wherever their customers are and where they're spending most of their time, which is in those kind of apps, not in their own apps. And so what does it look like? So this is what it looks like when you click on a product that has the Buy Now button enabled on Twitter. And it displays more product details, the item that's been posted, the price, shipping, etc. And it will only display if it's in stock. If it's not in stock, then it will tell you to check back. And it allows you to select the various options of that product. And have a little video of how this works. So you can select what type of product you want, which style, and then you can click Buy Now. Now, your card details and your shipping address are saved within Twitter, and you simply confirm that purchase, and it gets sent directly into the seller's system. So this is the other important nuance here. It's not just taking the payment, but it's actually creating an order in that seller's system so that you're not, as a retailer, having to reconcile between different channels, right? It's all integrated into one single channel. And so the other part of this that we really find exciting is it gives us the ability to actually close the loop in terms of what social media presence is worth, right? So it closes the loop in terms of your customer value. So you may have a customer that spends a little bit of money with you each year, buys once or twice, isn't particularly high spending. Now, they might be really, really dedicated to your brand, and they might be tweeting about your products all the time, telling all their friends, and you miss all of that. All you see is what they spend themselves. Now, with Relay, you can actually close that loop, and you can see not only what your customer is spending directly, but indirectly. So how much of their social media activity is actually driving sales for you, and therefore you can treat them and develop them as a customer and as a channel. So who knows what apps are going to be popular next? I certainly can't tell you that. But what I can tell you is that mobile is here to stay, and we've only just scratched the surface of what's possible. And so as a retailer, if you want to future-proof your platform and what you've built, you need to build it on an infrastructure that allows you to reach your customers wherever they are and in whatever apps are going to be popular next. Thank you very much.
So James, there's a lot of competition to be the home of payments in this exciting new world. Stripe's not the only kid on the block. What do you think gives you the edge?
So I think what we do is a little bit different from a lot of the competitors. Certainly we're all in the online payment space, and that's a great place to be. There's a lot of innovation. But the way that we approach the problem, it goes back to what I touched on in the beginning of the presentation. So it goes back into building that actual infrastructure that payments can exist on, right? So we don't focus so much on the kind of end interfaces, but more the underlying kind of infrastructure that retailers can build on top of. And that's payments as a start, but also things like Relay that allow product and order information to flow freely as well. So it's not just about payments, what we're building. We're actually building a platform for commerce as a whole.
And you say you work with Apple and you work with Facebook. What if they decide to cut you out of the loop? Because Apple has this direct relationship with a few 100 million people. What if they decide to go directly to the consumer and run their own financial back end?
So certainly this isn't designed in order to be the only channel that you would sell in, right? Retailers are always going to sell in a direct channel, but this adds a new realm of possibility in terms of an indirect channel. So they can reach those customers not only directly, but also through these other platforms. And so that's really the heart of what we're doing with Relay is creating a new channel, right? Just as kind of selling online was a new channel on desktop, selling on these social platforms is a new channel where you can reach your customers.
And what are you learning about how many taps on the screen people will tolerate before they give up?
Good question. I mean, stating the obvious, less is more. So the more steps you can remove, the more stuff you can auto-populate, and the more things that you can do in a way that's really friendly for mobile, the better. One interesting thing is especially around how you enter your details. So this is where Apple Pay actually comes to be really interesting, because you enter your card details into Apple Pay when you first set it up. So usually when people are setting these things up, they're sitting at home and they're kind of setting up a load of apps, and they don't mind entering a few more details. Now, when they actually come to buy something, if you have to enter all those details again, that's a real conversion killer. So also thinking about the settings of where you're asking people to enter things and at what point in the process is really important, we found.
Last question.
Yeah.
When we're having discussions about finance and innovation, the word blockchain tends to come up. The whole cryptocurrency world that a lot of the big banks are now either worried about or see as a big opportunity. How is the blockchain going to figure in the future of Stripe?
Good question. So we actually already have an integration with Bitcoin that allows our merchants to accept Bitcoin payments directly. And I suppose it goes back to what I was saying in terms of building this platform layer and this infrastructure. We're pretty agnostic as to which payment methods are used. We're more interested in facilitating commerce wherever and allowing our users to transact with anyone in the world. And so I definitely think that Bitcoin and blockchain more broadly is a part of that.
Thank you, James.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Stripe.
Thank you very much.